Welcome to this episode of the Talent Forge, where together we are shaping workforce behaviors. Today, I am joined by Julie Booksh, an expert in the area of self-compassion and leadership, and I'm really excited to dig into this conversation. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. I'm so happy to be with you.
So, why don't we get to know you a little bit better here, Julie? I'd love to know, how did you find yourself in this talent development space, and really what was driving that passion?
Ah, a lot. Well, first, let me go back. So I used to be in the business world. My first right out of undergrad, I was an HR person, and I stayed in HR for years until I went back to school to get my MBA. And then in the middle of that, I switched to my pre-CPA program. Then I went and worked for Big Four CPA firm, hated it. In the middle of all of that, I went through a divorce at a very young age. I was 24. And because of that, I started to go to therapy because I was in this relationship that I didn't know if I wanted to be in. And that was a huge deal for the young Catholic girl growing up in the South.
Okay.
And I started going to therapy. And through that, I ended up getting divorced. But once I kind of went into this space of questioning my entire life. So my relationship was the first thing that got me there, but then it was, why do I have this career? Why do I believe the things that I believe in? Like every huge question you could ask, I was asking. And that journey took me to getting my master's degree in marriage and family therapy
Mm,
and counseling. So
okay.
I'm a licensed counselor and a marriage and family therapist in my therapy career, but that has morphed over the years. You know, marriage and family therapy is actually a systems theory. So it makes it sound like it's just about families and marriage, but it's really about how systems work and how people work in those systems and how the status quo gets maintained and how the status quo gets disrupted. So all of that kind of led me here to um, deepening people's awareness of how they're functioning in a system, zooming out and looking at how systems function and how they, impact each other from the top down, from the bottom up, and all that jazz. So that's a little bit of how I tried to make that short, got to where I am now.
So I'm sure that the audience has figured out why I'm really excited to talk to you now. So before we jump into the self-compassion and leadership, there's a lot to unpack there. And, I like to look at it, even at my age, I still haven't figured out exactly what I want to be. There's always new opportunities and everything else. So I love that how this kind of shifted and into this systems approach. And now, obviously relationships, marriage, etc., all of those are systems, the home life systems, etc., and the workplace on some level is a system. Is there
Yes.
something, if I were to ask, is there a relationship, or what would you share maybe that would be similar between like the system of relationships and marriage and the system of the workplace?
Well, this, I will say that I'm going back to my graduate school. I can see my teacher drawing this on the board. They're similar in the way that they operate, meaning they have a norm. They
Mhm.
have a temperature, as my professor would have put it, that they like to stay at. Even when that temperature is dysfunctional, people are automatically maintaining the norm, even when the norm sucks. Can I say that here?
Yeah,
Known
absolutely.
as the swearing therapist. I should have put that in the intro, right? But so people are operating unconsciously often in a way that keeps the status quo, even when it sucks, going, right? So that's the similarity between the two systems. Now, if you want to disrupt the status quo um, anywhere, it's about learning how you are contributing to it and how you can begin to change. So if we put the status quo in a circle, and I wish I could draw this, and so imagine I have a circle on my hand, and I want the circle to go up here now. I want to change the status quo. Well, that means I have to move my position a little bit. So if I've been operating one way that's contributing unbeknownst to me to the system, I have to start operating in a different way. In a family, that might mean I'm going to start drawing boundaries where I haven't.
Right.
Now, in a family, the system might not like that. So it's going to try to pull the person back into the normal circle, the usual status quo circle. In a business, it's a little bit different because there are different ranks and powers, but maybe I don't feel like I have the authority to draw a boundary. And
Mm.
so all of this becomes a situation where I have to really deepen, is that true that I don't have the authority, or am I just assuming that's true? How does does the system create a safety around that kind of thing? And what's the culture of the system like? So marriages and families and organizations, which are kind of like families in some ways.
The
Um,
cultures, yeah.
yes. So that's one example of how they could be similar.
Well, I love that. That's a great example. And there's, again, so much wisdom in there. Number one is it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me kind of step one is becoming aware of ourself and our role inside of that system. Because I think so often, the thing that you said is like, how have I contributed to this system? And I think about that of how have I contributed to that system by either doing or not doing something. Maybe when I think of organizational culture, we all have a part to play. And a lot of times it's like, it's just the leaders, or it's no, it's just the people on the ground. But the reality is, culture is the sum of all of the behaviors in an organization. And we
Yeah.
choose to either normalize particular ones or avoid particular ones because of our choices. So, how do you help somebody raise awareness to like, their power, their ability to influence, or even just their own personal stake inside of those systems?
Yeah, well, first I want to look at the system inside of us, right? That's the one that gets ignored the most. And I want to really emphasize this is not about blame,
Right.
meaning it's not about, oh, what am I doing wrong? Because that's a very shaming model. This is about deepening awareness of what's going on. So if I have a problem in a marriage or a workplace or whatever it is, I want to be able to zoom out and ask myself, okay, what am I seeing? What's the problem? Now I want to zoom in and go, well, what's the system inside of me? Right.
Mm.
So maybe I have an inner dictator, so to speak. A lot of people might call this like an inner critic
Yep.
that says, I shouldn't stand up for myself. I shouldn't draw a boundary because what if I get in trouble or what, all the stories that we might have attached to that. So a huge part is and we don't think about this because it's not something we hear about often, is the internal system going on inside of us. We're made up of multiple parts, right? And a lot of people, myself included, for a very long time, had one part that was kind of in charge some kind of way. And that happens through different traumas. It happens through messages we hear growing up, or whatever the case may be, about how I'm supposed to be, how I'm not supposed to be. So there's this inner, you know, shaming watcher. Oh, don't do this, don't do that. It's not safe to do this, not safe to do that. And sometimes for good reason, it wasn't safe for me to do this or that. But now, if I'm in a place in an organization where I'm telling myself I shouldn't draw a boundary, I shouldn't speak up for what I want or whatever, and I am finding that that is not making me happy, then I want to go inside and say, okay, what is it inside of the person first that is telling them they shouldn't? And then I want to challenge that thing. I want to say, why shouldn't I? Is it true that I shouldn't? Is this organization not going to take that? Or is it going to put me in a place of harm? There are all of these places we operate from that we don't ever challenge.
Yeah.
And so I want to help people challenge, okay, is this true first? And okay, well, no, it's not true, but I still feel terrified to do it. All right, well, now it's stuff like that. So the inner system that's going on inside of us all the time is one that is often overlooked, especially, I shouldn't say especially in organizations, especially everywhere. But we don't think of ourselves as a system. We don't think that there's a whole system going on inside of us of different voices that we've internalized. And this is where the self-compassion part comes in, that we have to develop, many of us, a compassionate part of us, because so many of us were taught to um, grow through self-criticism.
Mm. You know,
So,
a- a- and I love this because as you're talking through this, and one of the things that I study is like the neurobiological patterns of behavior, right? So something occurs long, long time ago, our hippocampus starts going, that was scary. We don't want that again. And then all of a sudden, any time that potential risk is out there, a pattern of behavior starts playing. And if we're thinking about shifting behaviors in the workplace, we really do need to be thinking about what are those underlying patterns? Where do they show up? And what's driving those? So the fact that what you're saying is raising that awareness to where might this be coming from, and then really digging in on that question of, is this actually serving me? Is this creating the conditions for my success? Is this creating the conditions for conflict? Is it creating the conditions for my anxiety and my burnout? Is it,
yeah.
all those
And
voices inside? Yeah.
all of that, my anxiety, my burnout, we live in a culture that looks at those things as bad. Like if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling burnt out, it must be because I'm doing something wrong,
Hmm.
right? Or I haven't healed enough, or all the other bullshit that gets thrown at us that makes it always feel, speaking of system, if I could really zoom out and look at our cultural system, I would define it like this. It's a system that throws things at us that says, do this, this, and this, and this, and you will be well. You will be successful. You will have money. You will be in the right shape. All the things. You will have the right amount of energy. You won't be tired. All this stuff. Well, that is a very rigid definition of what it means to be well. Okay, so
Hmm.
what happens is the system throws all these things at us and says, do these things, you'll be well. And if you aren't well, it's because you must be doing something wrong. You must be procrastinating. You must not be setting boundaries. You must be doing this or not doing that. Instead of questioning the whole system, it's built on this shaming thing of, this is my fault. There's something else I need to do. There's something I'm not doing enough of. And this is why self-compassion is such a huge thing for me in my work, because I see this kind of shaming thing everywhere. So that's a system that needs to be looked at too. If I am burnt out, is it because I'm doing something wrong? No. If I'm feeling anxious, instead of treating that with a lot of care and compassion, there's a lot of, oh, we'll do this to fix it, like it's something wrong in the first place, when most people have really good reasons to be anxious.
Right. Well, when I think of burnout, burnout's simply an early warning system telling you something worse is coming if you don't take action. And I agree with you. I hear that language of we need to get rid of burnout or, nip burnout out. And when we're talking about burnout, we're like, actually, burnout's less about how much work you're doing. It's usually more about the resentment that you feel either from an isolation standpoint, a value standpoint, or anything else. So I really want to dig into this self-compassion because number one is I would say I don't know that it's well defined for people. So maybe if I could start there, what does self-compassion look like from Julie's
Oh,
perspective?
well, first of all, I have to say the question makes me want to close my eyes and slow down just hearing it.
Hmm.
And for me, that's kind of part of what it is for me. Now, it's going to land on everybody differently. But to define it, I would say that it means, number one, being aware of how I am. And then two, acknowledging it. And then three, I would say it would be treating it with kindness instead of how do I fix it? So kind of like I always use the analogy of, if I could talk to myself the way I talk to my puppy, then I am at the self-compassion. I've really done a lot of good work, right? Or for some people, it might be a baby, the way I would talk to a baby, or even a good friend. the way we meet ourselves when we're struggling is how I define self-compassion. And a compassionate stance says this, say I'm struggling with something. I'm afraid of something, whatever, name anything. Is to acknowledge that one, I'm afraid. I feel afraid. So I'm acknowledging how I'm doing, how I am. And I'm not meeting that with a bunch of, oh, I need to fix this, blah, blah, blah. I almost say, I tell people when I can say to myself, oh, sweetheart, you're feeling sad or angry or scared. And it's hard. It's hard to feel that, to acknowledge, like, I'm having a moment of struggle. That is compassion. To acknowledge it and to say, it's okay to struggle. You're not the only one in the world that struggles by any means. And this is hard. It's hard to feel this.
So,
So to
oh,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I,
no.
I was going to ask a question, and I'm loving this. I really like how you frame that because I'm thinking about this, and I'll just share a little bit of my background. I was a junior hockey player. I was pretty competitive. Then I went into debate. Then I went into mixed martial arts. It was always, forward, 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 fight, fight, fight. It was no flight. There was no feint or anything else. And, and this is not any criticism of my family, but growing up, it was just like, uh, if I screwed something up, it was like, come on, get your head in the game, do better. You're better than this. Move forward. And it was, and I found that to be mostly motivating. There's definitely
Right,
points and times when I've had to pull back from that and be like, all right,
right.
slow down, stop beating yourself up on this. But how common is it for somebody to kind of walk through that space of being like, ah, Jay, you're better than this. Come on, get your shit together, or something of that nature where it's just like really kind of, ugh.
Oh, it's so common, Jay. So what you're talking about is like the perfect example. I was also an athlete. I played volleyball and softball and very competitive. I'm still competitive. If I haven't played a sport in a long time, I'm looking to get into one, but I'm very competitive, and that has been mostly a really good thing. Um, but when we internalize a voice and it's the only voice, and that doesn't let up, it becomes like an inner criticism. It's we're never enough, we're never doing enough, we're never performing at the right level. It is so common. This is why I think one of my most popular classes I teach is how to tame your inner critic,
Mm,
because we don't, and again, it's not only your individual story. We live in a society that is about the grind and powering through and all, strength. And strength's definition is only one definition, and vulnerability is not strong. We're seeing this change,
yeah.
but most of us grew up in be strong, power through, don't show your emotions, it's weak to cry, all of these things. So it's extreme. I have never met a person um, that I don't hear an inner critic in. I've never taught a class where the topic of an inner critic or a pressure maker, for different people, it has different nuances. Um, I've never been in a class, even when the topic wasn't inner criticism, where this doesn't come up.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and and as my brain starts to go in all the different directions, I'm thinking of those people that are out there that suffer from severe imposter syndrome, like, ah, I don't belong here, or the inner voice going, you don't belong here. What are you doing? Get out of this space. I've experienced that once or twice, and
Yeah, once or twice.
once or
Wow.
twice, and that inner critic of saying, well, what about and maybe let's take this one because I see this very often in work cultures, the comparison trap. You've got
Yes.
one manager who's looking at another manager and saying, "Ugh, I should be at that level, or I should be doing this, or gosh, why am I not, keeping up with this person?" And there's always this sort of like comparison between ourselves and somebody else in the workplace. So these are all examples of that inner critic that you're speaking to. How does
Yeah.
how does self-compassion, like how does that work? How does that function to start removing sort of the impetus behind that inner critic?
Yeah. Well, first, I have to tell you that the whole time you were kind of explaining the question, I kept thinking of myself when I was younger saying, I'm not my sister. I'm not my sister. Like, so for some of us, it goes way back, the
Yeah.
comparison thing. And it doesn't even necessarily, like, I can honestly say, my parents must have been telling me something that I was responding to, but I can't say that they were like comparing me all the time, but it's in the water of our
Mhm.
culture. So, self-compassion. So inner criticism, there are a few different ways because we don't want to have a shame around inner criticism either. Like, how can you not have an inner critic if you grew up in this country? So, um, right. So there are a few phases of it. Like one is learning to recognize it because so many of us think that voice is just like the normal voice, that it's a strong voice, and we don't realize the impact it's having on us emotionally, physically, spiritually. Um, so one is recognizing it. Two is starting to talk back to it and question it, like I was talking about before. And the third piece for me, but it's not in this order, is the self-compassion part. Because I could just take the first two out for a minute. And if I wanted to just only focus on the third one, what it does is it starts to create a voice inside of us that's not just the pressure maker, pusher, inner critic.
Mm.
So many of us have that voice as the dominant voice, and all of these other parts of us don't get airtime, so to speak. They don't get to push back and say, I'm tired, because the voice is like, well, it has a reason you shouldn't be, or so what? You're supposed to be tired if you're going to be successful, or whatever. So the self-compassion piece starts to create space, even if it's 30 seconds a day. It's 30 seconds more than what most people have, where I can let myself slow down and check in with how I'm feeling and honoring how I'm feeling, saying it's okay how I'm feeling. How I'm feeling is okay. It might be difficult. It's okay that it's difficult. And so it's creating space and how would I say, a voice that can hold, I'm going to say tension for right now, without having to fix it, without having to improve. It's a very loving stance. And I think most of us are caught in the stance of go, 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 and doing, performing, perform. And part of that is wonderful. Like we want to do all these things, we have all these ideas, and it's great. But when other parts of us, and our body is one of the first places that might say, ouch, like this hurts, ouch. Why? So self-compassion starts to build that space in us that a lot of us don't have because most of us were never really taught it.
Let's talk about shame for just a second
Uh-huh.
because when we think about so a big part of what I like to study is like, okay, well, what was the adaptive purpose of these emotions, right? Like if we think about evolutionary biology, the things that we have with us served us over the course of our time on this planet. So I know that shame, I mean, shame was actually one of the social cues that said, hey, you did something wrong, you feel shame for it, so that way you don't do that something wrong again. And it creates a better social structure when you actually have some level of shame. But it seems to me that we often sort of like overdo it with shame. So there's this balance of where it can be adaptive and it can also be maladaptive. And it seems to me that a lot of shame or maladaptive shame, overuse of it, tends to create some levels of rumination, or we just kind of dig back into it or keep reliving it and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
If I was to ask, and I'm not asking you to quantify or anything else, but what are your thoughts when it comes to, okay, so there is some level of shame that can be a good thing.
I'm going to
Um,
push back on that.
okay,
I'm going to differentiate. I'm going to say no, there isn't. But I'm
okay,
going to differentiate this. I think what you are talking about is guilt. And to me, guilt and shame are two different things.
okay.
Okay. So I think what you were describing for me more falls under the guilt category. Shame is a different beast. Shame is a you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're a bad. Not not you did something bad, right? You are bad. You are worthless. You are not worthy. That's shame.
So
And
more of the
shame,
core, like
yes, of
I
who
as
I
an
am.
individual, not my behavior was bad, but
Right,
I as an individual are bad. All right,
right.
I can definitely, I can see
And I
that.
think there needs to be some separation between that when because what you're saying is correct. Like it's if I do something and it harms another person, it's a healthy thing to feel a little bad about that or a lot
Right.
bad about that. But what self-compassion helps you do is it helps you say, yes, that it's difficult to hurt somebody else, but it doesn't make you bad.
Mm.
It self-compassion helps you learn how to be accountable without being awful. So I can be accountable for my behavior, I can be accountable for my actions, and all of that's really important. Shame actually prevents people from being accountable because it just brings them straight into you're a piece of shit.
Sure. And then
Okay.
the defense mechanisms could come up and the pattern
Yes.
end up
And,
repeating.
and there's no ability to be accountable because I'm just such in this terrible place that I'm just trying to fight feeling like total shit.
Mhm. So from the shame versus guilt
Yeah.
perspective, and when we and I like the separation of those two things because when if I'm thinking about like the individual aspect of it now, let's say that I were to take a perspective of I am not, and let's play with this. So I'm going to nuance this just a little bit for us.
Please.
I am a terrible musician. You give me a guitar and I am going to screw it up. I am awful. I am bad, okay?
Right.
Now, where does that fall in terms of like this self-criticism, self-loathing? Not, it's obviously not shame. I can honestly
Right.
tell you, you don't want me playing a guitar in one of your in
Well,
one of
and
your
you're smiling when you tell me, right? That's part of what tells you it's not shame. It's
Yeah,
just like
right.
I don't have
It's
any
not. It's
guilt.
just yeah. So how do we parcel this out? Because I think that there are some people that'll be like, okay, well, if I'm not, if I'm not necessarily going to feel shame, does that mean that I'm not recognizing when I do bad things or when I'm not capable of something? Or where does this come into like the questions? I guess really what I'm getting down to is where does it come into the question of ego?
Hmm. Okay. Well, ego, man, Jay, we need 3 hours for these questions. Oh, okay. So ego gets a bad rap. And I understand why. When we're in our ego and we're only in our ego and we have no connection to our deeper self that knows that not everything is about ego and feeling, you know, safe, meaning, I'm never wrong or I don't take risks or whatever. So if I am too connected or overly connected with my ego and I'm only in my ego and I can't ever feel bad because then I lose my sense of importance or not even importance, my sense of worth, right? Then I'm totally wrapped up in my ego and only my ego, where I am only able to value myself through my level of perfection, really.
Yeah,
So it's a trap, right?
right.
Now, I think where ego gets a bad rap is our ego needs to be in conversation with our deeper self. The goal is not, oh, let's get rid of the ego. I mean, ego is not bad. It's part of what drives us. But we want it to be, remember I was talking about the different parts of us and like inner diversity, being aware that we're made of multiple parts. And we want to build these parts in us, like the self-compassionate part, the inner healer, so to speak, the inner therapist. So you want the ego to be able to communicate and be in relationship with the deeper self that knows if I screwed up, it doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. It means I'm human.
Hmm. Love that.
That's that's what it means. It means I'm human. I don't know a soul who has not hurt another person.
Right. So let's take this to that leadership side now,
Okay.
because I think that there are a lot of leaders out there that expect themselves to know everything, expect
Mhm.
themselves to make every right decision, expect
Right.
that, and it honestly, like whether you're in a leadership title where there is a lot of stress, maybe there's high
Yeah.
stakes, maybe there's risks. But I mean, most people, I still think also kind of expect themselves to, expect they do feel shame when, I don't know, or the ability to
Yes.
admit, I don't know, or I
Yes.
can't do that, or anything else like that. But for leaders, we know that there's usually consequences to their decisions. Consequences not just for themselves, but for a company, for their teams, for their employees, for whomever it might be. We know that a lot of times leadership can be really, really lonely, where you feel like you're only the only person that's managing whatever the issue, risk, or change management that's coming, etc.
Right.
So, from a leadership perspective, how can we maybe help them to move a little bit more towards that self-compassion, that ability to open up and say, okay, I need help.
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you're trying to move in that direction, um, and you know you haven't really lived in that direction, number one, understand it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel vulnerable and it's going to feel risky. And so I want to have a lot of compassion around those feelings. Like it's okay that this feels risky. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. I don't like it, but I'm here. It's almost like you're witnessing yourself with compassion instead of witnessing yourself with shame. I am acknowledging this. This is hard. I'm here. We've got this. It's like you're creating a partnership with your inner compassion part.
Hmm.
So, one, I want to frame it like it's going to feel uncomfortable. That's okay. That's okay. Two, I want to say as a leader, if we just stay on the intellectual side with self-compassion, self-compassion helps leaders create a more psychologically safe environment because they can say, I don't know. They can make mistakes and they know it doesn't mean they're a bad leader because they have a compassionate part that says, oh, I screwed up and I'm not a piece of shit. I'm human. I screwed up and I'm human. And what it does when a leader can say, I don't know, let's take a breath. Let's think about this. Let's not have to know for a minute. Or when they can say, I screwed up and I want to make sure people know that I've owned that. It makes other people feel safer to do the same thing, to own, I screwed up. So it creates an environment where perfection isn't the goal and it makes it safe when perfection doesn't happen. And it actually makes people more creative in that kind of environment. So self-compassion as the leader. When I'm a leader, and because to me, everybody's a leader. Now, I totally recognize what you're saying. People in certain leadership positions, it's lonely at the top. There's a larger level of responsibility. But as a leader, when I can say, wow, I'm feeling nervous about this, let me just take a breath. Um, that ripples out where people can say, oh, like it's okay to feel a little nervous. And I'm good. I can feel nervous and still do whatever I need to do. So it really is a huge piece. But if I am not compassionate toward myself as a leader when I screw up, and people know that, then that's the culture I'm creating. That when people screw up, I'm supposed to be really mean to myself and hard on myself. And self-compassion does not mean that I'm not accountable.
Hmm.
It's actually the thing that helps me be more accountable because I can say, I'm human, I screwed up. It doesn't mean I'm bad.
Right. And it
So,
probably reduces the amount of resistance that we have just internally for acknowledging and or taking ownership on something. So,
exactly.
from that perspective, when we think about, what's created these patterns, and I look back and I'll just use my own personal example,
Yeah.
but I do know for a long time, and I'm going to admit what created this pattern too is not my team, but it was me. But at one point in time, there was an element where like it was everybody was coming to me for permission or coming to me for this and that. And this was on me 100%. And I'm gonna accept that ownership and responsibility.
Yeah.
But I can see how leaders sometimes start to get into that space of thinking, well, the team's counting on me, everyone's counting on me, and I've made a mistake.
Yes.
So when we're in that cycle, let's talk pre-making the mistake, and we feel already that
Okay.
the team is just counting on me.
Yes.
Help us walk through how can we as a leader maybe fix that? And I don't mean fix that as it has to go away or anything else, but how can we maybe soften that? Because when the mistake occurs, we don't want to be worrying about it then. So let's say before the mistake happens or whatever the incidents are
Yeah.
that creates the conditions, we're feeling like the whole team relies on us. How do
So
we
you're
start navigating that?
okay. So you're feeling pressure, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling all this pressure. Oh, that's a beautiful example. Oh, that's really a beautiful example. And this is what I'm perfect example of like just ways when I can start to create the habit of checking in with myself,
Mm,
right? Because I'm in the story of everybody's counting on me. I am, I'm feeling, so the first part is I'm feeling stressed out, usually. I'm feeling stressed out. Okay, well, that's a huge descriptor. Tell me more about I'm feeling all this pressure.
hmm
And I want to stop and I want to say, wow, I'm feeling all this pressure. Acknowledge how I'm feeling. One, that part alone is huge because I'm inside myself now. I'm not just this machine that's pushing myself forward. I'm noticing me. I feel all this pressure. Okay.
As you were getting me to this step one too, like I'm putting myself, because I've put a lot of pressure on myself in the past in different
Me
instances.
too.
So as you were saying that, I started to put myself into that, and then I went back to your original question of like, is this because somebody else is putting the pressure on me, or is it me putting the pressure on myself? If I went to my team and said, "Hey, do you expect me to know everything, do everything, be everything, live everything?" Would they say, "Yeah, Jay, I do"? No, they wouldn't.
It's a
They,
gorgeous
they really
question too.
wouldn't.
Right.
You know,
It's an important distinction. Like, and this is what I'm saying. If we slow down and just get a little curious,
yeah.
okay, is this pressure coming from outside or is the pressure coming from inside? And people's bodies, I do a lot with body, listening to our bodies will often, because some people will say, I have a pressure headache. And I will say, does the pressure feel like it's coming from outside or does the pressure feel like it's pushing out from inside? The body
Mhm.
will often mirror. So the first part is acknowledging, like, I feel this pressure and being compassionate. Of course, I feel pressure. Like some people will feel pressure and they think they're wrong to feel pressure. There's no wrong feeling. What you're feeling is smart. Your feelings are smart. So I'm feeling this pressure. Man, so much pressure. It's hard to feel all of this pressure. It takes the pressure down. And that's not the goal when I'm doing it. The goal is caring for myself in a way that actually sees me and doesn't just look at me as a machine that has to jump through all these hoops for everything and everyone. So the self-compassion, I'm feeling pressure. Okay. It's okay. Of course, you're feeling pressure. You're in charge of this massive organization, or you're in charge of this conflict, or you caused this conflict, whatever it might be. Um, Now I'm thinking of marriage and family again in my own life and the pressure I put on my husband or whatever. Um, but acknowledging how I'm feeling and again reminding myself that of course I'm feeling this. I'm human. I'm supposed to feel things.
Yeah.
A lot of different things, not just all the good things.
Where did we as a species start to get into repression? Like where did that come from? Why do we try to push these feelings down? Because and I will tell you, yes, I came from a family where it's like, suck it up, buttercup, get back out there, put it away,
Yes, me
and
too.
don't you worry about it. So I
Yeah.
am definitely a product of that environment. But with that being said, like what was the adaptive and I don't know that I'm asking you to truly
Yeah,
answer this
yeah.
question, but what's your thoughts on that? Like where did this become the adaptive response, which is completely maladaptive to our actual like happiness, joy, or expression of real emotion?
Yeah, I have two answers. One I'm going to answer, and I don't have the answer, like you said.
Sure.
Uh, I first want to talk personally for me. And again, this is an incomplete answer, but it's a start. I grew up in strict religion,
Mm,
and strict religion, this is, I think, why I'm so passionate about self-compassion. I never learned how to be kind to myself or love myself. That was all for other people. Be kind to other people, love other people. Meanwhile, keep track of your sins and go report them. So okay, so there's not a lot of compassion in that. So I grew up in a strict religion where it was always about staying in line, following the rules. And if you veered from the rules, you had to go report yourself to a priest and, get absolved and all of these things. So, I mean, we're laughing about it and it's
yeah,
great to laugh about it, but it can create an inner monster.
yeah,
Like, God is always watching you, making sure you're choosing right or choosing wrong. And your eternal life depends on your choices, whether
yeah,
you end up in fire or in clouds. Okay. So there's a real, for me, now lots of people are religious and don't have that, but lots of people do. Um, so that is an inner critic that's almost guised as God. Like,
yeah.
how do you challenge that? So, for some people, bad religion is one place. And the other thing I want to share is I remember, and I hope I'm getting this right, the author Susan Cain. I don't know if you've heard of her, but her first book, I think it was her first book, was called Quiet.
Mm,
And it was all about introverts in the workplace. And in the book, as she's kind of laying out some historical things, she talks about the Dale Carnegie era
mm,
and how it became a culture of personality, like you were this persona, and how at the same time anxiety meds went up in men because they had to put on this show. Now, it's hard for me to say that men didn't have anxiety before that, but this sales culture of be this charismatic person that I don't think gets on a stage and cries or shows their vulnerabilities. There was also an uptick. People lost, they were about being a personality, not a person.
mm.
And I don't know that that's where it started because I think it probably started long before that. For me, it started like if I look at the history of religion, I can see some of it in certain religions, right? So I don't know the answer, but those are the first things that pop in my head when you ask the question.
Well, and it's fast that I love the answers because I started to think about that too, and it's almost like this like when we have a prescriptive almost this is how you're supposed to be, and
Right.
whether that's godly, whether that is this is the macho, and I was thinking like as you were talking about, I was thinking like the Sean Connery of the 19
Yes.
70s or 80s, this is what a man is, and
Yes.
those sort of like almost like lofty, overly high expectations. And it comes down to, again, a little bit of the comparison trap like, oh, I'm not like that. Why? I gotta,
Right.
just toughen
Well,
up or
and
whatever.
then let's insert feminism, right? So women are trying to get more access to certain positions,
Hmm.
and they have to act that way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they're playing in a masculine world. I don't mean male, although in this case that also applies. But like the way, if I'm going to be in this world and I'm going to be able to compete and get to the levels that I want to get to, that's the model of how to do it. I mean, look at the difference. Like even like look at politics. Like, I remember after Hurricane Katrina, I'm from New Orleans. Uh, the governor at the time, Blanco, Kathleen Blanco, she cried at the podium at one of the press conferences after Hurricane Katrina.
Seems like
And
an appropriate
people,
response.
thank you. And people were not having it.
Ugh.
And I'm like, our city is destroyed. Like, how are we? I mean, everybody's crying. Everybody's all always also trying to put things back together and happy as a community to be together and mourning the loss of life and all kinds of things. How do you not cry? And but as a governor, she shouldn't have cried, was the so there's this mentality
As,
that as a
as though
leader,
the title all of a sudden just revokes or takes away any emotional capacity that you have.
exactly.
And quite frankly, I think if some of the politicians cried a little bit more or actually demonstrated some of their emotional self-compassion, we might not be
Here.
as divided as we
Yes.
are as a country. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. If we could see each other's humanity,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
And here we are back to self-compassion. But we were taught somehow, and I don't know where, Jay, but somewhere we were taught like this is what strength is supposed to look like. This is what leadership is supposed to look like. And all of it just kept taking being human out of it. And there's no psychological safety in that for the environment, right? So in organizations, people feel safer. I tell my mentor, so one time she forgot like our appointment or something, and we get on the phone. She's like, "Oh, I had it the wrong thing." And I just smiled. And she's like, "What are you smiling at?" I'm like, "I love it when you screw up because it just makes me feel so much more comfortable." So,
Juliet, I love this, and this is one of those things, and I think that with your permission, I'd like to invite you back at some point in time so we can talk a little bit more about psychological safety. I know we really
yeah,
kind of dug in on the self-compassion side.
yeah,
Um, you know, because these things are linked and these things have an impact on us as individuals and also the systems, whether that system's family, whether that system's culture, whether that
right,
system is, even just our social political environment out there. Is there
right.
any kind of final thoughts that you would leave? I know that we've talked about a lot, being aware of it, sitting with it, being able to take it, and these are those takeaways for the audience, sitting with it, being aware of it, having some of that, hey, I'm human and I have a right to feel these ways,
Yeah,
recognizing that we're all feeling this way, whether people are showing it or not, unless they're a complete psychopath, they're
right.
probably feeling, very, very similar things.
I
Uh,
don't know anyone who isn't struggling in some way.
right. Right. Yeah.
My I would say two things. One is that self-compassion for me is the foundation of psychological safety.
Yeah.
First inside of myself, but then inside of if I'm a leader or the leader of a family or whatever it is. Um, so it can't just be when I listened and learned from researchers on self-compassion, they always say when they go into companies and teach about it, the employees always want to know, are the managers going to get this class too? Because they the managers are the one who set the tone. They're the ones that have the rank and the power to set the tone for the psychological safety. So you can't just say, "Oh, I want my team to know they don't have to be perfect," but then I'm walking around not able to let myself make mistakes or whatever. So that's like an incongruent message. So self-compassion, even in leadership, is the foundation of psychological safety. And I forgot the second thing that I was going to say, Jay, but here we are.
Well, here, I'll ask the question for the second thing. If our
Okay.
audience wanted to get in touch with you, Julie, and to talk
Yeah.
through some of these issues, how would they reach out to you?
My website is my name, juliebooksh.com. And I am on Instagram and I'm on Facebook, but through my website is probably the best way to reach out to me. And I want to mention, since we talked about it, I do have a free PDF on my website about the inner critic and
Hmm.
how to tame the inner critic that talks about what you and I talked about, how to deal with that. And there is a self-compassion piece of that in that document. So if anybody wants that, please help yourself.
Amazing. And we'll make sure that that link is in the show notes so you can find it, audience. Julie, I just want to say this has been an awesome conversation. A little bit longer of an episode, but I think that we could have probably, you're right, gone for another 2 to 3 hours
Yeah.
on some of these topics.
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, to starting this conversation, and for sharing your wisdom and insights in these areas. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Jay. I agree. It has been a wonderful conversation, and I love your the depth of your questions. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we'll definitely be looking to have you back, and we can further this and dig a little deeper on that psychological safety. So thank you again. And thank you to the audience for tuning into this episode of the Talent Forge, where together we are shaping the future of workforce behaviors.